you in Pleo, you worked with the Nordics. I was talking about this in my intro as well, and you worked with the Nordics, and then slowly started to transition before you went on new adventures to focus on France.
Yes.
Did you see any, and what was your approach to working with the French and the French market in your whole use of video? Did you see any changes in?
Yeah, I mean, there is a cultural change, and for background, I grew up in France for 20 years, so I am native in French and so on. So it was quite natural, and I wanted to kind of also, because I had that upbringing, I thought, why not put it at the service of Pleo, but also try something else at that point, because I had been onboarding 3,000 customers in Swedish for 2 years. At some point, you want to try something else, right? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's fundamentally different the way I was working with Sweden and France, but there's also, of course, cultural nuances. I mean, in Sweden, we're very personal in the sense that we say you, as in English, right? In France, you are a bit more polite.
Okay.
So you would address them in third person, your customers, and so on. So there's a little bit of a different relationship in that sense. But I think as soon as you adapt to that, and as soon as you get comfortable with speaking about your product and your company in French, the output wasn't fundamentally different. It was more, small nuances in the culture.
But did that make it did it make it more difficult to then have the same impact with like a personal video? If like the Swedes are used to being very much like, because that was your main point just a second ago, like that personal touch really made a big difference. But did you see a difference then in the French?
I mean, I still kept it somewhat personal with the name, the company name, and making sure it was the last name. Then in France, often if it was the first time, I would reach out.
Yeah.
So it was still, the personal bit was still there. I think I might have gotten even more interest in France because it felt to me like they were even more behind in terms of that sort of communication.
Okay.
In Sweden, it's picking up, right? You have quite a lot of tools and a lot of people communicating via video. So a lot of sales processes today are via video. Maybe not so much 5 years ago when I started with video, but in France it felt a bit more like they felt surprised in a great way, and
so the wow factor was even more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have to consider it was in the beginning of COVID, so that it ran a bit short, my France run, because COVID hit, I think, March 2020, if I remember correct, in Europe, and I started this job 1st of March 2020. Okay. So. I had to work on this, since I couldn't fly to France and meet my customer in real life. So I had to find another way there to create that relationship.
Yeah.
And this was a great way. I think I created good first contacts so that we could discover everything we needed to discover, because it was primarily discovery work I was doing. So reaching out to accountants in France, to financial directors in France, to understand a little bit. Yeah, but how are we going to position Pleo in France to succeed?
Yeah.
And I think ultimately with the results I got and with the contacts I developed, being remote, so being on distance from France, I would say video really helped me get there.
Yeah.
I also had initially some social media videos to my own network, because I grew up in France. I, of course, have a lot of friends left in France, and they started sharing that video to their networks, and that just created that perfect first impression, but also first contact with the people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My brother, for example, still lives in France. He gave me 2 or 3 financial directors that I started speaking with, for example. So ultimately, content and video content really helped me just speed up this process for me at that point.
At least kick in a door at places, right?
Yeah.
Did you now, like, touching briefly on, because we luckily we're over the whole pandemic thing. We're pretty much, at least that's what it feels like. Did you experience, because now you've been working with videos like a long time before that the pandemic hit, did you experience a shift in the way that people started using videos and perceived video messages, and like the whole, everyone now, like no one is alienated to like a Zoom or a Skype meeting?
Exactly. Right? Yeah, I was going to mention that. I mean, everybody's doing video, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're always on video, it feels like, when you're working, because even if you're not remote, very often you have someone remote on your team, and then you need to be on video.
Yeah.
So I think people have naturally become a bit more comfortable with the format.
For sure.
That said, it's not yet there where they get over this hurdle I was speaking of earlier, of, you know, feeling comfortable talking right into a camera, and because that's important if you want to engage your audience, to speak to your audience directly in the camera.
Yeah.
So there's still a little hurdle, but I think it's much lesser than it was pre-pandemic.
For sure, and I think I can definitely recognize this when we go out sometimes and film with people that needs to be on camera. It's very, just because you're on camera doesn't mean that it looks like you like being. You can see when people are not comfortable on camera, and just like you said there, people are getting more and more used to being on Skype, Zoom, whatever meetings, and seeing themselves. So that's a good start. But it doesn't mean that they like to be there, right? Yeah. Some people hate when they have to turn on the webcam, but that's just like company policy or something. So I agree. It's still.
And I mean, some people will never love it. Like, I mean, we all are different. We all love different things. I enjoy it. I enjoy the output it gives. I enjoy, you know, doing it. Yeah. So of course I'm maybe more prone, and I know you are as well, great on camera. So you're more prone to become good on camera if you enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately I feel like the people are more used to it, and the hurdle is a bit lessened by that, right?
For sure. And sometimes I also hear people, that's maybe like a third species, people that like it and people that don't. And then there's this somewhat in between, where people that don't really like it but really see a great benefit. Like they can see what it does, or they're like, I don't really want to be on camera, but I can see the outcome when I post something on LinkedIn. I just do like a quick selfie video, because we can talk about that, like quality, quantity, where we lie on that one. But there's also that, like, that people can really see, okay, I have to do it because it's really good for my personal brand or my job or whatever.
Keep